we do measure the impact of AI on our current operations. And the intentional part is we then transfer that savings into more human time. So in my personal opinion, AI is going to empower us to be more authentically human. So, of course, starting out as very young, we were all kids once. We were told we could do anything and that yet we were special. So uncovering the ability to identify how we're made uniquely and then leveraging the art of collaboration, which is combining two or more people, places, and things. And here we're talking about people. So leveraging the time savings that AI produces and then intentionally setting up time that we can just be human. And I can figure out how and what I was given that I can provide it and give it to Ben. And when that happens, what can we create together? So in every organization that I own, we're leveraging AI at record pace, but with intentionality to empower our team to be more authentically human. Right? So AI today doesn't create. It doesn't know nuances like what's happening on this particular call. You can feel it. I can too. And we're doing it together and at a very rapid pace. If you would embrace AI and have that level of intentionality, it will be very surprising what your team can create when they're not continuously doing rudimentary tasks that we perceived as valuable in the task economy. Now that we're moving over to the idea economy, let's give them some time to have those ideas.
Yeah, Chad, how does someone actually embrace it? Right? I mean, if you go on, there's like all of these different things that people can sign up for, right? You go on Instagram. I mean, pretty much every fourth, reel or fourth, thing on TikTok is about like, hey, join up for my AI workshop, my AI seminar. How does someone actually who's an entrepreneur who actually goes, you know what? I want the more humanness, right? The Four Seasons CEO says, systematize or repeatable so you can humanize the exceptional, right? Which is kind of what you're talking about. How does someone actually start to do the audit so they can understand like what things can they outsource so that they can more like exceptionalize their humanness, so to speak?
Yeah. So the way that I did it for myself, because I feel like we all have to pierce through the veil, is now that most of your primaries, whether it be Grok, ChatGPT, Perplexity is one I use on a daily basis, they all have enhanced voice. Start talking to it and just telling what's on your mind. That's super handy for me. So I typically start around 4:30 or 5 in the morning on my way to the gym, and I'll begin just to communicate. I call her Collabra, is what I call my enhanced voice version of ChatGPT, which has tons of my profile studies uploaded already and all of the concepts that I've created of helping people expand their vision and leverage the art of collaboration. Like it's all in there. So when I began to discuss, this is most recent, that I was thinking about creating a version of CoLAB specific for aspiring entrepreneurs at the college level. It doesn't start from zero. I can have a conversation with a PhD level assistant on my way to the gym. And as I pull in, I simply ask one question. Can you summarize everything we just spoken about so I can copy and paste and share it with my team? So that's saving me an immense amount of time in trying to communicate my ideas of how to create value with what we already have by engaging my team at the 50-yard line, not the 5-yard line. And we're trying to climb ourselves out of the end zone. I move at a pretty quick pace, and a lot of times I leave out things, not intentionally. The challenge with being a big visionary is, and I often say this, I can see a lot more than I say. You just can't get it out of your mouth. So piercing through the veil, start talking to whatever platform or choice. I don't think you can get this really wrong. Start where you are. That was super helpful for me personally. And then also remember that it is a PhD level assistant. So perhaps you don't know the question to ask. Why don't you just ask the PhD level assistant to tell you the question to ask, to turn around and ask the PhD level assistant for the answer? That was also another huge unlock. Right? You don't have to have the right question, but you do have to have the intent or the curiosity and know who you're speaking with. But I think it all starts with meeting AI where you are. And for me, that was just starting to talk to it.
That is just super, super brilliant. I think that when I've talked with entrepreneurs, they feel like there's a right way. There's a right way to like do AI, and I think you just nailed on the head. No, it is just starting and just what I call it verbal vomit on, and just get practicing just sharing your thoughts. And I really love your statement that you just made here, Chad, that I see more than I can say, or I see more than I say. And how has AI helped you tease more of that out?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so a lot of times it will give me insight from all of its capability that adds a lot of color to what I'm thinking, and I'm able to either embrace it or say, not exactly what I was thinking, but I appreciate that, and here's why. I would have never done that, because us as humans think we communicate at a very high level. It causes some action in the other human that you're talking about, or that you're talking with, but that's not true always. Not true most of the time, actually. We all hear based upon our contextual awareness. I understand that we receive 2.2 million inputs a day, and we delete all but 137,000. So if you and I wake up at the same place, go to the same meetings, ride the same car, have lunch together, we have two wildly different experiences based upon that particular day, driven by, of course, all our prior experiences. So anything that I can leverage, AI being this particular data point, it's going to help me communicate better, but I have to communicate with it. And it's been hugely valuable and helpful.
Yeah, you're talking about so our inputs, we're basically hanging on to about probably 5-6% of them.
That's it, man. Yeah.
That is wild to me. I had no idea. That is absolutely wild. So how much more? You ever see that movie, Lucy? Did you ever watch that movie, Scarlett Johansson?
Oh, yes. Yes.
And where she starts to take on more and more parts of using her brain.
Yes.
So let's assume from the standpoint, this 137,000 inputs that we hang on to, and that's 5%. How much more has AI feel like it's helped you unlock?
At least double that. I would say at least double that currently. And as we know, at the rate in which AI is growing exponentially on a daily basis is what it feels like often. There's no telling where this is actually headed, but it heads nowhere if you don't get in the game.
Just get in the game. One of many people, if you've been listening to the podcast here, just know that there's certain quotes that I use all the time, and the one that I use all the time is the Zig Ziglar. You don't have to be great to start, but you have to start to be great. It's the 90%. It's the most important 90% that you can just start.
Just start. Yeah, that's awesome.
And here's the crazy thing: with AI now, you can start, and it costs you nothing.
That's great. This is true. It's interesting that you mentioned Zig Ziglar. So it takes me way back. My most favorite quote ever, I'll share it with you. The only thing that matters, and I've modified it just a little bit. So the only thing that matters is the vision someone has of their future and how you can help them with that future. But I mentioned it, that you mentioning Zig Ziglar takes me back. I believe I was 19. I was in the horse trailer business. It was in Elkhart, Indiana, which is a place where they put interiors. It's a big camper installation place there. And one of the horse trailers that I sold had a plant there. And I was there at this horse trailer conference. I had no idea that I really shouldn't have been in that room, though my sales volume said that I was absolutely responsible to be in that room. And there's an older gentleman that walked out on stage, and he said that particular quote. He said it a little differently. The only thing that matters is someone's future and how they view it and how you can help them with that future. Now, I cannot, and I've tried since that particular time, how to dispel that particular quote. I can't do it. And I've never found anybody on the planet to be able to do it. So to wrap back to AI, enabling yourself to take those ideas that began in your imagination to become reality is a huge unlock when everything that you see, everything that you've seen, and everything that you will ever see started as an idea in someone's imagination. So it just wraps it all the way back to that original quote. So thanks for sharing that.
Well, you're welcome. Well, do you ever read Be Your Future Self Now, Dr. Benjamin Hardy?
No, I have not read that. I know Ben, of course, but I have not read that one.
Well, it's a fantastic book, but one of the things that I took from there was that he actually says that all physical creation is preceded by mental creation. So what you just talked about is huge. And it goes back to this idea of, rather than the task, right? Something needs to happen. You do it over and over and over and over again, right? You sit in front of a computer and you do it over and over and over again. Is that I think that's the beauty of this idea economy that you coined, right? That it's really going to be about he or she who allows them and gives themselves permission to think, create, and be willing to explore.
Yes. So that I'm awareness. I think a little bit and consistently, and it takes me to a place where it appears I'm picking up on a pattern around third grade, 8 years old. It all changes. We began to be encouraged. I'll use encourage lightly. You could use a lot of different words to begin to think convergently and less divergently. Now, I said earlier, everything that we see, this microphone, the internet that's connecting us, this camera, computer, everything behind you, everything that we see and that we will see and we have ever seen started all as an idea in someone's imagination. And if you further combine that with you nor I nor anyone else listening to this podcast has ever done anything themselves, it's all been in collaboration with a person, a place, or a thing. Those two awarenesses, I would argue, true facts, are huge unlocks. So if they are true and you believe them to be true, what's holding us back? This vision. It's inside of us. It is the imagination that I feel like gets robbed from us starting around the third grade. We have the ability to see way more than we say, in my case, and way more than most of us will ever do. Leveraging AI, if that is a capability or a tool that helps me pull more out of what I would argue starts in my imagination, and I leverage the art of collaboration to make it real. AI is nothing more than a collaboration tool for me. But you mentioned it earlier, it's free. Why are we all not using it, at least to some degree?
Chad, you just unlocked some imagery for me. If third grade is where we are inundated, cultured into convergence, what AI allows us to do is actually travel back in time. Because so often people will say, Chad, if you could talk to your third grade self, what would you say to yourself? This actually allows us to go back and actually redo grade school, high school, college, but at an accelerated, compacted space for us to be able to re-educate our brain. I'm going to call it rewild our brain and so that we can be in that creative space.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So that we need more time, right? It's full circle to back what we said. AI is going to empower you to be more authentically human. We have the answers. They're inside. We have the ideas. They're locked up. And they've been squashed for a long time, and now they don't have to be. We need more time to think. So I need less time doing these rudimentary tasks. The next AI that pops into you, I think you mentioned the Instagram feed earlier. The next AI, it's like, great. I can do that, and I no longer have to, an example, create PowerPoints if that is part of your job. Take that time to think, to dream bigger, to just add a zero.
I don't know if you saw the CEO of Fiverr recently just published his open letter to his team and his whole company, right? This massive company, which is about doing tasks, and he basically says it's actually one of the most honest, articulated letters I've seen. basically saying like, hey, AI is coming for you. But then he takes this interesting twist on it. And he says, and if you wait for it to happen to you, it will happen to you. It will be a self-fulfilling prophecy. I'm paraphrasing here. But he then dives into it and says, but if you actually take this opportunity now, knowing that it's coming, is it allows you to actually master. And when I love this word, this master, is not just master the task of doing the task. It's actually master in terms of what you talked about, the creativity, the vision of what that task could be and done in a different way, a different flavor, a different sort of outcome. And I get the sense from you, Chad, that you do not see AI as this big bad boogeyman that's going to come and it's going to, take over the world in the next 3 years, right? Is that fair?
No, it's going to evolve the world, just like all the huge innovations that we've experienced throughout previous generations. This is not just another empowerment of evolution for us. Embrace it. What can I do now? What have I always wanted to do that I never had the time to do? Yeah, embrace AI, and now you can find that time. And with that time, you can think bigger. And then you can have the capability to create a reality of this future potential can become a current reality because of AI. You don't need to go hire an army any longer. You have capabilities, right? What are we going to do with cash? The new book we have coming, Capabilities, we dive really deep on what capabilities are. And one of those, of course, is cash. Cash doesn't do anything for you until you put it to use. It's just a thing. But what are you going to do with cash? You're going to buy vision. So I'm going to educate myself. I'm going to buy capability. I'm going to have someone else do something, or I'm going to leverage reach. I'm going to run a bunch of ads on Facebook or Instagram or TikTok, and I'm going to get this idea that I have to be someone else's idea to buy it by leveraging that reach. And cash is just a capability. So what you're seeing with AI is now you have access to, I would argue, limitless capabilities, and they continue to expand every day, where previously you would have to have a large sum of cash to be able to begin to get started bringing this future potential into current reality. And most people don't have large sums of cash. So AI is a huge unlock when you approach it that way. Whatever job that you're in currently, you likely have some complaints about that job. It's likely about how that job is being instructed to be completed, or it's the way we've always done it. AI is going to change that. Well, who has that idea? You do. That idea currently is locked up in your brain, or maybe you share it with your coworker. Now you have the opportunity to leverage truly a value creation opportunity that you yourself have at your fingertips by leveraging the power of AI. So please embrace it.
That's incredible. That's incredible. So, I mean, you kind of led in a little bit just there. So if you are an entrepreneur or you're listening to this and you actually maybe work for a corporation, a growth-minded individual, or you are just a growth-minded individual, how would you suggest someone who maybe exchanges currently time and talent for someone to think about AI?
It's a huge unlock to well, first and foremost, I believe we absolutely all start out as entrepreneurs, right? If you focus back on the definition of entrepreneur, it takes something that exists currently that's producing an outcome and it increases its outcome, right? You're just taking the current level of performance and you're heightening it. So that complaint that you had that I mentioned earlier in this conceptual scenario, which I think is probably a lot of reality for those folks that you just described, they have the idea of how to create value. They are an entrepreneur, but you and I were supposed to both get 100 on the math test and also on the English test, but you're way better at English and I'm better at math. But let's all do it because we're all supposed to do it. It's like, no, I thought we all were built unique. So unlocking that capability and unlocking those ideas that you have sitting wherever you are right now of how it could be done better. I'll be honest with you, being on the other side, I've only ever started organizations since I was very, very early and young, but that's all I ever wanted. I don't want to be the one that has to come up with all the ideas. I'd much rather the ideas come from everyone in the organizations. Why? Because they're the ones who know exactly where this friction is coming from. They're the ones who see a better way to do it, and how we could create more value for those that we serve. So wherever you are right now, let those ideas flow. And as we talked about earlier, start talking to AI. Whether you use GPT or Perplexity, and just say, hey, this is what I do. Here's what I really don't like about what I do. And here's some ideas that I have. How would you being AI, think about going to make that viable? And just let it continue to help you expand your thoughts. Who knows? You may be the CEO tomorrow.
Amen. In your flagship company, the CoLAB, you talk a lot about this unique value contribution, which I think is such, I mean, there's all these like genius zones, right? You know, unique ability, like from like company like Strategic Coach, right? But I think that your unique value contribution brings like an interesting twist on that. Can you share with the audience, like, what is that? How do you define it? And more importantly, how would you actually understand and audit yourself to understand your own unique value contribution?
Mm-hmm. All wonderful questions. You're exactly right. I wholeheartedly believe Mr. Dan has it exactly correct in unique ability. I've invested the time with Miss Julia Waller, who is an amazing person, and of course follow everything that Dan does. Unique ability applied is really the foundational definition of what I classify as unique value contribution. So your unique ability, and first and foremost, I think it's very wise to define and make a separation. There's a difference in capability and ability. So you have a piano at home. You have the capability of making some really nice music. And your ability might be regulated to plinking out Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star, two wildly different things. So whenever you invest the time, and I think most recently is the Unique Ability 2.0 workbook from Strategic Coach. I had completed it years ago with one of my leadership teams, and then later on joined Strategic Coach. And then, of course, later on did it with Julia Waller. When I got to the end of it, and I'd mentioned earlier, a little bit of curiosity I definitely have. I was like, okay, this is awesome. Now what? How's the best way for me to apply my unique ability? And that's whenever I coined your unique value contribution. So I often say the way you do what you do is your secret sauce. Think of the organization that you own. Think of the role that you play in the organization or the job currently that you have, the title that you carry. A lot of times, if I were to meet you at a party and you would tell me what you do, you would reply back, I'm in HR I'm head of operations, I'm whatever, head of logistics. And like, no. Like, what do you do? Like, how do you create value in the world? And that is part of your unique value contribution. When you get to the place where you understand that the way you do what you do is your secret sauce, and you maybe even take it to the next step and name it, then it's just like a baby. You can't unsee it. Right? And that becomes and defines you. And it's very empowering because you separate yourself from the convention of some title or some industry or some SIC code. And that, no. That's not why people do business with you. That's actually not why they pay you the money that they pay you. It's the way you do what you do. So it's hugely liberating when you get to the place where you understand what your unique value contribution is.
Yeah, that I love your distinction. That's what you do. I was interviewing a guest this last week, and they said we're called human beings, not human doings.
Yes, absolutely.
And I feel like your unique value contribution is starting to define not the human doing, it's actually the human being.
Yes. It's your most authentic expression. This is the way I typically reference it, which again, AI is just going to help us do more and more of that. But it's the way you do what you do. It's the way you're uniquely created to add value back to the whole.
Chad, if you were to tell the audience today, who maybe have used it for like, oh, tell me a little bit about this, help me write an email, help me write a LinkedIn post. Just the one question that you would encourage them to ask as they explore that human beingness, that unique value contribution. What's the question that you would have them on their way to the gym, or if after they get done, or they hit pause on our podcast right now and go, I'm just going to ask, ChatGPT this. What's that question that you would say right now they should ask in that sort of quest and journey to understand their unique value contribution?
So if I were to pause currently and hop over to ChatGPT, I would ask it to engage me in a series of questions that help me understand how I am unique in the way I create value in the world. Again, you're talking to a PhD level assistant. It's going to ask you the right questions if you ask it the first one. So I would expect it would take you through a series, depending on if this is your very first time ever engaging with it. It's going to begin to ask you who you are, where you are, what is it that you do, what title do you hold, what education do you have, what experiences. But then it's going to get really deep with you as a human, and you're going to be surprised at what it produces. And then a follow-up question: how best can I use the way I was uniquely created to contribute and create value in this world? What should I do next?
Makes me want to pause and actually just go write that one down myself, Chad. So you have unique value contribution. One of the things you talked about earlier is that we've all been collaborating for our whole lives, right? With a person, place, or thing, right? Can you talk a little bit about how collaboration, because by the way, I think you're an alchemist. Like if you've ever been around Chad, he's will hear a little something and there's a thread, and then he'll hear someone else maybe like a week later and hear a little thread and he goes, wait, this is a collaboration that honestly, even AI would never have been able to actually figure out, like, hey, maybe these two things, we should apply these together. It's like that moment in Ratatouille. I don't know if I have kids ranging from almost 17 down to 4 to at least at the time of this recording, soon to be born baby. So Ratatouille's played a large portion of my life, but there's this moment in there, this scene where he goes, you have this piece of cheese and you taste it and it's just like, right. And then you have this strawberry and he eats it and he has kind of like these little bubbles come up ahead. But when you combine them together, that's like what you do with entrepreneurs and talents, unique value contributions. So talk a little bit about, why do people miss these threads?
Too much looking inside of themselves. That's it. So much of what's in it for me is the program that they're running versus what's in it for them. And what do you have that you can give to help create that outcome? So you mentioned all the things earlier, which is awesome because you're right. I'm so fortunate and blessed, I would argue, that be able to see the emergent of value creation and then track back to the connections that are required to create that emergent. So it's a little bit backwards in which I see it. The good thing is, and I've created a formula that anyone can run, is what I was trying to do is understand what program am I running internally that produces this outcome so that I can repeat it and empower others to do it. And that's whenever I developed what I classify now as the IC3 formula. And that is an awareness that every day that we're given breath, we're going to collect one of 4 things or all 4. So we all started today and you become conscious. And not long after that, you either collected a relationship, maybe an awareness, you became aware of something. You potentially collected knowledge. You read the paper, you read Instagram, I suppose would be today's paper. Or potentially you finished a book. And then perhaps you're taking a journey today, or you're going to meet someone new. You're going to try something new. It's going to be an experience. So a lot of times I reference that as the RAKE method. See the opportunity to rake today at the end of the day and understand what relationships that you were created today, what awarenesses did you run across, what knowledge did you now have, or what experiences did you have that were unique to you. And when I really thought about it deeply, and that became very apparent that we're all the same in that respect. We wake up and we begin to collect relationships, awarenesses, knowledge, and experience. Then the only thing that's different is the constant program of combining. When I say combining, what I really mean is you're combining those relationships, those awarenesses, that knowledge, or those experiences with who you know, what you know, or where you know. And every time that I ran that program, I created. So whatever you created is just the intentionality of sharing that with whoever it's going to positively impact. I mentioned earlier, I typically see the emergent and then immediately go and find the connections that create the opportunity of that emergent. But if you want to go from where you sit in your chair or in your car and you really think about it, you started your day and collected some relationships. You met some folks, maybe some new people in a meeting. You became aware of something because you may have gotten an email or a text message. Perhaps you finished a book finally. Been working on that for a while, or maybe just the next chapter. And now you have more knowledge. Or you went somewhere new. You took a new route today. You had a different experience. If you'll simply combine that on a continuous basis with who you know, what you know, or where you know, you'll have a limitless ability to create value in the world.
Well, you and I've talked a lot, and that was probably the clearest that I feel like you've articulated. That RAKE method, I think, is absolutely beautiful. I want to go back though to the what's in it for me, because that is such a strong pull. I mean, we see it in friendships, we see it in marriage, right? We see it in business relationships, we see it in terms of like employer relationships, right? We see it in sports, right? We see it in so many different things. What about your method allows people to let that go? And why is that so hard to let go?
It's so hard, I believe, because we're taught, and it goes back, I would argue, around the third grade, right? Starting where we all have to kind of conform. And we began to be trained upon competitive growth strategies versus collaboration growth strategies, right? It's not what does Ben have for me? It's what do I have to give to Ben and combine with what Ben has to create something new and unique. So it's a huge unlock to begin making that mindset shift. As we all know, I assume energy doesn't dissipate, it just transfers. So when I think about what have I been uniquely wired up with and how can I combine it with Ben and create something new and unique, and that impacts Julie very well, what happens with that energy when this is transferred? It continues. And then before too long, it comes right back around. So helping them, all entrepreneurs that I work with, understand they have so much more, I call it collaboration currency, to use and to leverage. If you think about all the things that are in your wallet, for those of us who still tote one, it's becoming less and less a thing. In my Apple wallet, you have so much more in your wallet. And at the end of every 30-day period, I envision that you're just throwing away all of your collaboration currency out the window. But if I were to look at the things that you've been blessed with, whether you have a bunch of machines because you're in manufacturing, or you're really, really awesome at Excel, which is still a thing, I suppose, you have all these capabilities, or you may just have unlimited ideas. And I would argue that, furthermore, the folks with a lot of capabilities, sometimes they're waiting on the folks with a lot of ideas. It doesn't come natural to them. But these are all examples of us, as I mentioned, collaboration currency that we have to give to others. In my methodologies, it's all about collaboration in that we're going to split the outcome of whatever we create together. So that it does take a little bit of, and I have very successful entrepreneurs who have been very successful, who have really took it to heart, these competitive growth strategies. They've become very, very good at it. But if you can change that mindset just even a little bit, it doesn't take very much to see the impact that you can have, and then what comes back to you when you begin to look at the world just a little bit differently, and then what you can give versus what you can get.
Yeah. How do those conversations go though, Chad? I mean, I think that, people are listening to this going, I love this idea. It's like John Locke, utopia, right? Of like, yeah, we can create, we can see that. But how does that conversation go that allows, because I know some of the entrepreneurs you're working with, and you're right, like super high performing, super competitive, and super like love to win. But how does that conversation go? Because I can imagine someone sitting in their car right now going, yeah, this is great. And yeah, but how does this come back down to the money? Like, how do we split like the money, right? Like, what is like, how does this all go in, right? Is this all like, it's a handshake agreement? Like, how does that conversation go?
Sure. Starting first with the conversation, and I'm encourage everyone to always meet whoever you're speaking with exactly where they are today. So if they have been trained very well into competitive growth strategies, you have to talk to them in their terms. Everyone, as we talked about Zig Ziglar's quote, the only thing that matters is the vision. That's a little bit of my sprinkling that someone has for their future. Stop there. When you began the conversation, everybody wants a different future. They all have an idea of a bigger outcome of their current existence. Meet them where they are and understand that. Now, the second part of that quote, I think, is very impactful to our conversation and how you can help them with that outcome. So would it be true that when I engage with all these entrepreneurs, it's very important that I lead with and by example? So understanding what someone else visions for their future. And then I run the second part of that quote. What have I been given? What capabilities do I have? Who do I know? What resources do I have to combine with them and help them create that future? And once I have the answer to that, once I begin to help them see vision from that perspective, it's a huge unlock. The very next question is, how do we measure success? And then the next question, how are we going to split this outcome? When success happens, how much is going to be Ben's and how much is going to be Chad's? I didn't ask Ben to go do something else. He had a vision. I didn't ask me to go create something else. I had capability, or maybe I had reach, or maybe I had the vision to help him with his future vision. And if you just combine the two of us together, that vision, that future potential becomes current reality. When that happens, how we're going to split the outcome? It becomes extremely easy. Now, one thing about it, and you ask the question, it's like, how do you document this? I believe is the way you referenced it. Like, what do we do? Is it just a handshake deal? I've created this in our business, the SEEDSPARK CoLAB. I've created a tool called the Declaration of Collaboration, which is a one-page document that outlines similar to the things that we just went through. It adds a couple more. I always start and end with the hero target. So who is going to be impacted by your future vision? Like, who's going to be a winner? Because once I understand that, then I can quickly align with your vision and understand how my capabilities can be combined with yours to create that future vision. So one-page document is all that I use in all those collaborations that we referenced earlier in the call that outline how 2 entrepreneurs or 4 or 5, or the highest one that I have now is 9 entrepreneurs are coming together to create a particular outcome, and they all know how they're going to split that outcome.
Yeah. So I just want to repeat back what I hear you saying, Chad, is that you get really clear about what does winning look like, to whom that looks like, and obviously setting out and like who's bringing what, the vision, the capability, or the reach, or potentially who's bringing 2 of the 3, right? Or do we need to go find another collaborator? And when we talk about outcomes, we're not talking about splitting current outcomes. We're talking about splitting something for most visionaries, right? Most people who have a vision or an idea, it seems so far out there. So by making it a reality, we're not splitting real money. We're splitting at this point fake money because.
But taking this approach, you can get warp speed to creating that future money. It can become current reality really fast, way faster than doing it the conventional way that we've all been trained to do. But you're exactly right. We're splitting future money. Therefore, to labor up and get legal involved and to jump through a bunch of hoops and have 3 or 4 meetings to talk about doing actually something. I could just have a real clean agreement with Ben, because in my world, if Ben doesn't show up or I don't show up, the outcome doesn't show up either. It doesn't exist. And we talked about unique value contribution earlier. In all my collaborations that I construct, I'm looking for what either party has as their passion that's showing up as their unique value contribution. So if you have to go do something new or create something new or hire someone new, those types of things I'm not going to leverage in collaboration. I'm going to leverage exactly what I have today, and more specifically what my passion is, and I'm going to combine it with Ben. When I combine it with Ben, because of his vision, I really align with it. He doesn't have the capability I have. He doesn't have the vision or maybe the reach. It's one of those three. Then when the outcome begins to happen, the earliest time and way we can measure success, how we're going to split the outcome. By doing it that particular way, you get started today, not tomorrow even, not next week or 3 weeks from now. And you can move at what we, a lot of times in strategic coach, we talk about 10x. When you begin to really embrace the art of collaboration as your growth strategy, you can move at 100x.
Yeah. You just created the clarity I have of why the saying that I say. So Dan Sullivan says, a compelling offer is 10 times more powerful than a convincing argument. And I took that a step farther. A compelling outcome is 10 times more powerful than a compelling offer, which is 10 times more powerful than a convincing argument. And what you actually articulated is, in essence, why I've always internally believed and why I sort of coined that additional step that a compelling outcome makes actually collaboration possible.
Absolutely, it does. Yeah. So it's the very first day I came to coach, Dan did say that he mentioned my good friend Dean Jackson coined. So he coined those first two parts, but I love what you've added to it because it makes so much sense. And it really takes me to a place you will often hear me say continuously and consistently, vision is the catalyst, right? So vision clarity creates that compelling outcome that you talked about. You can have an idea. And then you also hear me say, if you don't have a vision partner, someone who's really, truly a visionary, find one. And if you are one, find one. Because what you have when you find one is the ability to take these ideas that you have and bring them into focus. I'll give you a couple examples. Nothing against Baltimore, Maryland, but if you've ever been downtown Baltimore, Maryland, and it was dark, and the closer it gets to 12 o'clock, if you and I were walking down the street and we were just about to go beyond the corner of a building, we may need a little bit of courage to keep going. We're going to stop our conversation. We might even pause. Who knows, we might even move across to the other side of the street to get around this corner of the building. Why? Because we can't see around the building. If you or I, either one, had vision clarity to see around the corner of that building and there's nothing there, would we break stride? No, we wouldn't. We would keep walking. Business is the same way. The ability to create value, the ability to take your ideas and make them really, truly something, I feel like is all predicated on the level of vision clarity that you have. So the more vision clarity you have around that idea that maybe you're sitting in your cubicle as you listen to this, or in your car, that big idea that you have for your position or your company, or maybe even your industry, if you don't see it clearly, like you're able to see me or Ben on this podcast, find someone who can help you bring your idea into true clarity of vision, and then leverage the art of collaboration, which you already have if you found a vision partner. So you're already on your way. Now you're looking for capabilities to help bring this thing to be reality. It's a huge unlock to understand that vision clarity in vision is the catalyst. You often get chastised, I would say. Certainly many entrepreneurs by their team have been chastised with being an idea factory. It's not a bad thing. There's a huge unlock, and that is find a vision partner who can help you bring those ideas into true clarity of vision, and you'll see those things come to life.
I love your analogy of being able to see around the corner. I mean, because there are things even in my life where I sit and go, if I could see around the corner, I wouldn't break stride. In fact, I would actually probably accelerate the pace I'm currently walking, because I'm only walking the speed I'm walking now, because I'm aware that if I walk any faster, is that it's just going to accelerate the pace that I can't see around a corner. You mentioned before, Chad, about you have a new book coming out, and you kind of talked a little bit about sort of this formula you have coming out. So I would love if you actually talked about it, because I think that and maybe even before that, even talk about the other book you have out, which is Just Add Another Zero, which I think is like either the prequel, if you want to say, to this this current book that's coming out. But could you talk a little bit about that book? But more importantly, this new book and how you are very formula related. I think that allows people to be able to apply it to their own life. So can you talk about your two books?
Yeah, there's a few, but we'll start with Just Add a Zero. Becoming aware that there's some fundamental rules that the world operates by. And I've shared a couple of those. Vision is the catalyst. We've never done anything ourselves. It's always been in a collaboration with a person, place, or thing. And everything that we see, have seen, or will ever see started as an idea in someone's imagination. I have yet to be able to break any of those. So that would lead me to think that we're all not thinking big enough. So it really led me to naming the first book, Just Add a Zero. For those that are going to receive a statement of their W-2 deposit this week, or perhaps they're going to do a monthly review or a quarterly review or an annual review of financials, I would encourage you to take either one of those statements and add a zero to it. And the first thing that's going to come into your mind is all the reasons that can't be true. I would encourage you as well to use the power of one word. After, let's say, jot down 3 reasons that it can't be true, and then write down one word after it, unless, and watch what your brain can do, or watch what your leadership team can do if you were to perchance do that. Exporting that P&L and add a zero to every one of the line items. And they're going to tell you really quickly why that can't be true. And that's empowering. If you further leverage the power of unless after each one, you're going to unlock their brains, including your own, as to how to make that add a zero become reality. Right? So that book, I really unpack ways that you can reprogram your thinking. We are the ones holding ourselves back when you really understand, I can't do it myself anyway. I've never done it myself. It's always been in collaboration with a person, place, or thing. Then this applies as well. I think it's paramount. This applies as well to personal. We talked about some of those experiences when we unpacked the IC3 formula. I apply just add a zero to things as well, even at a personal level. An example of that, I have a very good friend we both do, Dr. Nick. You're familiar with him, obviously? I was sharing with him this methodology early on in our relationship, and he said, well, I don't understand. And I said, okay, what's coming up this weekend? And he said, well, and his son, awesome young entrepreneur, by the way, Thomas, is captain of the football team, and I think he was actually taking his other son, who is cerebral palsy, he's poured into, couldn't see, but now he does, couldn't hear, but now he does. And I would argue is soon going to be walking, but he was doing the Paralympics and he said, this is what I'm going to do this weekend. And I said, okay, you have some expectation of the experience that's going to be. And he said, yeah, I mean, I love doing it. I would dare say it's going to be an 8. Awesome. What can you do to make it an 80? And then, of course, it just went silent because he began to see the visions in his head. Remember? Clarity of vision creates reality. It is the catalyst. We have to ask ourselves a question like just add a 0. So when I asked him that question of how could he apply a 0 to take that 8, 0 to 10 is what he, of course, scaled by. How can you take it to be an 80? He began to think back and he said, I know exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to invite my father. Now, you may not know this about Dr. Nick, but he was extremely good at athletics in the Rose Bowl and many other accolades. He then shared with me a lot of times his father wasn't able to be there. So they're getting ready for the Paralympics. He jumps across. He's going to push his son Thomas, of course, in this particular event. And he does that, and they win the medal. And he turns around and looks at his father. That made an 80. Not just for himself. What did he have that he could give? He was already going to the Paralympics. He was going to make it as good as he possibly could for games. But how could he take that and add a 0 to the entire experience? What did he have to give to make an impact on someone else? So obviously it's very easy to understand the just add a 0 concept and methodology to your business, to your income, but it also can be applicable to your personal. And it always resonates whenever you use it for someone else.
Well, this really is the prequel, though, because you're actually preparing the seedbed for collaborations, because it's all about just that adding the 0 forces the vision clarity, right? Which is what you need for a collaboration to be planted.
Yes. Bigger outcome. I can't do it by myself. I'm like, you're right. We never have. It's always been in collaboration with somebody else, a person, potentially a place, or a thing. So the Just Out of 0 book was impactful. The second book is Friction Fuel. And it's what I've used to create many, many, many businesses that I started too early so I could never work in the industry and then create a business. I'd always figured out a way to create value that was, I would argue, sitting right in front of everyone else who's in the industry, but they wouldn't take action upon it. And I would argue now that it's all because they didn't have the vision clarity. I did, because it's just an internal program that I'm running, but leveraging friction, which my definition for friction, there's 3 different types. One that you're reacting to. We're all aware of that. Why? Because you don't have any other choice. You don't have any money. You're going to react to that friction. Some people react to the other ones and some don't. So the second level of friction, just like you pull up to a gas pump, regular is the one you're reacting to. Mid-grade or plus, I think they call it at a gas station. I would argue those are like complaints. You can outpace your competition very, very easily if you just have a system to capture those complaints, those polite suggestions of ways you can create additional value and heed them and do it. And then the last one is the one I really like to play with, and I would call it premium friction. And that's whenever you can recognize I'll be funny, there's a disturbance in the force, but no one's picking up on it and no one's complaining about it yet. But perhaps you would show up with the solution, everyone would buy it from you. I've done that countless times in many different businesses. So that being the second book, I wanted to empower everyone to figure out how they could just be aware of exactly what they're experiencing and pick up on those frictions and give them a way to categorize them, to catapult themselves into very high value creation opportunities. And then the next book that you mentioned, it will be in conjunction. It's co-written or co-authored by myself and Dean Jackson. So Dean created the formula, which was also shared with me by Dan Sullivan. Vision plus capability multiplied times reach equals success.
Vision plus capability multiplied by reach.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So you can see countless examples of this out in the world. Someone has an idea and they combine it with someone who has a capability, and then it gets multiplied many, many times over by someone that has reach. I'll give you a really clear little example that I stumbled across in awareness, right? So using that RAKE method, relationships, awarenesses, knowledge, and experience. About 5 years ago, I remember it hit me like a ton of bricks. In every business I've ever owned, someone already had the credit card number on file of every client I ever wanted to do business with. So I could either go try to find those individuals with a credit card that's not on file, it's in their pocket, and try to create a trust relationship, right? For people to do business with you, they have to know you, they have to like you, and they have to trust you. I could do that, onesie twosies, and I did do that for many, many years. Or I could leverage this art of collaboration and I could go identify who had that credit card number on file, who already had a trust relationship with every client I'd ever want to do business with. And then I could collaborate with them. Then the only thing I'd really need to figure out is how we're going to split the outcome. But that would empower me to go at 100x speed, not 10x, and certainly not 1x. So the VCR formula was a huge unlock. It gave me words to describe the program I've been running for a very, very long time, because I have a lot of those visions and I think about them a lot. And it's all based upon recognizing frictions in the world, whether you're sitting at a restaurant and the plates are not moving fast enough, or someone's not coming up to the table quick enough, or you're engaged with someone's customer service and you know it could be better. And you just ask questions. Well, if I were to solve this, how deep of a market could I create? And then if I'm going to solve it, who already does business? Does everyone in this customer service game use the same platform? Because these ideas that you have for value creation are most likely the answer to somebody on another Zoom call or sitting in another meeting who has all the capabilities, all the reach. But they don't have the vision of how to create new and unique value for those that they're already serving. So the VCR formula, when you begin to understand the world as someone has vision, someone has capability or capabilities, and then someone has reach, it's a huge unlock to see how you can contribute and move at so much faster of a pace.
These 3 books are going to be an incredible trilogy. My brain is going, the thing that keeps going through my brain, Chad, is that, anyone who's done workouts, you break it into usually blocks, 2 days on, 1 day rest, 2 days on, right? And then so on. I'm 6 days on, 1 day rest, 6 days on. And I'm just thinking about, we train our bodies this way. We break down our macros of like what we eat, how much we eat, when we eat it, right? Intermittent fasting, you could go like Paleolithic diet, primal diet, keto diet, carnivore diet, vegan, vegetarian, right? We have all of these like structures that we run through. We have our time system, right? If you're a strategic coach client, the entrepreneurial time system, right? We structure all these different things, but you're giving me clarity on like, we don't structure a workout, a methodology for how do we work our brains? How do we actually create the ongoing structure that makes the outcome inevitable? And with these 3 books, I'm starting to understand like, okay, hey, if you don't necessarily have vision, well, you can probably understand friction because we all like figure that out, right? We can feel it. Like you know what friction is. Every human being knows what friction looks like, feels like, sounds like, tastes like. Okay. Well, once you have that, then you can actually go back to your just add a 0. Oh, okay. Well, if I just added a 0 to this, right? Or I said unless, and then added a 0 to it. Okay, I have this idea now. Oh, hey, vision. And then you can then it's the launch pad. It's the performance plan, the VCR.
VCR, definitely. You don't have to have the capabilities. Starting out, certainly so young, I thought I had to do everything myself. I really tried hard too. And I've measured to some level of success. I feel like success is always in the eyes of the beholder because there's someone who's always bigger and someone who's always smaller, right? What's it mean to you? But it's a huge unlock. It's like, okay, you individually, you listen to this, play a key role in the whole world. You are made uniquely. You have a unique value contribution. The way you do what you do is the secret sauce. How can you combine that with someone else's reach or someone else's vision and create a much bigger outcome? And then if we're going to do that, how are we going to figure out who gets paid what? Oh, you just figure out how you're going to split the outcome, right? The outcome hasn't happened, and it doesn't happen unless you all three combine. Yes, you can have two of the three, of course. Someone can bring vision, and they can also have reach. I see that quite often, but they don't have the capability. And the person with the capability doesn't have the vision of how they could take that capability and add a zero. Oftentimes, I'll tell you, this is really interesting to me. I recognize a pattern, those with big reach. Let's say that there's an HVAC company that does a bunch of marketing in your local area. They have a ton of trucks. Where are those trucks sitting? And I've done a little research on this. They typically are sitting in front of a certain price point of home for 1 to 4 hours, and they run quite a few calls. But yet, if I wanted to sell something and all of my clients were driving up and down one interstate, would it be logical for me to buy a billboard on that interstate? Of course it would, right? So you're just connecting, like, what really are the facts here? So that's just an example. That person who has hundreds of trucks that are doing HVAC all over a city, they're sitting out in front of high-priced homes for an extended period of time. They're not leveraging that reach, and they have that reach. When I talked about collaboration currency earlier, we all have so much more in our collaboration wallet to activate or to put to use and create a much bigger outcome for yourself by doing it for others. So it's definitely a big unlock of a formula.
Chad, I want to say thank you for being on here today. Man, what a masterclass. This was an absolute masterclass. It was meant to be us just talking, two guys, two entrepreneurs talking about entrepreneurial things, and just some major unlocks. I will say, regardless of the audience got anything, some major unlocks for me and for me. That was, which is crazy because you and I talk all the time. But I just thought this was absolutely wonderful. Hey, if people want to know more about you, they go, I want some VCR. I want some friction fuel. I want some just add a zero. Where can they find you? Socials? Do you have events coming up? Give all the details, please.
All the details. So SEEDSPARK.com is my parent organization where things like the CoLab and many other lab named programs are housed. Seed Vision Spark Growth is where that name came from. So SEEDSPARK.com is one place that you can visit. As well, LinkedIn, we're quite active there. And you mentioned events. We have an event coming in October. It's our annual event for all of our CoLab partners. So those 500 plus collaborations that we talked about earlier, we bring quite a few of them to one event per year. And at that event, you should expect not only just to learn about the art of collaboration, but to walk away with collaborations. So that event is called CoLab Con 2025, of course, for this year, and it's in October. And it'll be held in Charlotte, North Carolina. But there we have quite a few speakers. We talked about Dean Jackson, the co-author of the VCR formula. We'll be launching that book at that particular event. And then Miss Shannon Waller, also with strategic coach that we referenced here, such an impactful and pivotal amount along my journey that both Shannon and also Dan have been. And then quite a few other speakers. Dr. Nick, I talked about him in Just Add a Zero. the way that he applied it. He'll be speaking. Dr. Nick is a neurovision specialist, and I leverage his skill set to unlock a lot of the rubber bands that are holding many entrepreneurs back. So I'm looking very forward to CoLABCon. It's going to be a jam-packed couple of days of events and excellent wisdom around leveraging the art of collaboration. Should be a lot of fun.
Yeah, and seats are limited, right? So if people want to get there, like make sure you get on there and book it.
Yeah. We wanted to have this in Charlotte. We have an excellent place called the Mint Museum. It's a very nice place, but our capacity is capped at 200 this year. So, and we're getting pretty close. So it might be something you want to move on pretty quick.
Yeah, that's amazing. Well, Chad, I super appreciate you being here. Thanks for sharing so generously and so articulately and just laying out some really actionable things that people can apply, whether you're the entrepreneur, whether you are the actual person who's actually making things reoccur for a company. There were so many actionable things. One of the things I like to do is with our guests is allow them the last word. So what's the last thing that you'd like our audience to think about, maybe contemplate, or take action on?
Think bigger. We're the ones holding ourselves back. You have all the opportunity yourself to unlock that imagination that you were pre-wired with to create a lot more abundance in the world, for the world itself, and also for you. So today's the day. Get started.
Thank you so much, Chad, for being here.
That is a pleasure. Thank you very much, man. I enjoyed it.
Thank you for listening. A big thanks to Elation Lab for the production and creative design. Remember to like, subscribe, and follow us on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. Keep listening for more Max Life.